Yes, sir, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Oh, well, hold on for a second, Jack. We're not going to do Jeopardy yet. I do have a trivia question for you. But anyway.
Let's get it out of the way now.
Well, let's get back to it. Welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. This is the Wednesday edition of our show that covers all your Northeastern local sports, New York, Boston, and Philly, Wednesday through Sunday, 8 through 10 a.m. You can join us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. On Facebook, username at MacMan62. Google Mac and Jack Sports. For our website, you can go to macandjacksports.com. We're also on Twitter at MacManMcGrath. We also are on Instagram at Mac and Jack Sports. Like, follow, share, and subscribe where you can to help us keep growing. I'm Mac with my co-host Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association, and our show's historian gatekeeper. How you doing today, Jack?
Good, Mac. How are you?
Not too bad. 2 days off, Jack. Some news that we'll be getting to. We also have the Philly sports guy. He made his show debut last week. Very interesting man. You weren't here. Keith Angle was subbing in for you that day. So you'll get to meet the Philly sports guy. He's scheduled to be on at 8:30. So, Jack, we're taking the 2 days off. We do have things that do come up on Monday and Tuesday. So let's get some of that information in. I'm going to start with a local football story that happened quite a while ago in the offseason, and was cornerback Andre Baker, who was arrested for something to do with gambling and maybe trying to use a gun to collect some money from a Madden sports game. I mean, this is what was alleged. He had a friend that was involved in it, and the charges have been dropped against him. And, of course, we know the Giants cut him for the roster. Coach Joe Judge came out and said they did what they did at the time, what they thought was right for the team. And now he's been picked up and signed by the Kansas City Chiefs, Jack.
You know what's interesting about the Chiefs picking up DeAndre Baker? Now, DeAndre Baker has to be assumed as being innocent, but he's had red flags in his career. He's had issues besides this, okay? And, okay, we're glad he has a second chance at a good quality life, and we hope he makes the best of it. But the Kansas City Chiefs sent Kareem Hunt packing.
Right.
His situation was different. It was supposedly some domestic violence or so on. But the point is, the Kansas City Chiefs said they expect their players to conduct themselves a certain way at all times. And now they're going to DeAndre Baker. He's going to be on the practice squad. And Andy Reid is kind of like a father figure to these guys. So if anyone could keep DeAndre Baker in line, help him grow as a man, you'd think it would be on Andy Reid.
You know, that was a great point that you brought up. Kareem Hunt had been alleged for some kind of domestic abuse. And as you said, they cut him almost right away. And to pick up DeAndre Baker, who was allegedly in some worse trouble. Now, I don't know what happened in the Hunt case. I didn't follow it, Jack, whether he was found guilty or not, or what happened with that. But it's a good point. It seemed that, the Chiefs picking up DeAndre Baker after, letting go of Kareem Hunt was pretty unusual to me, too. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So there were some basketball moves over these last 2 days. Of course, we got the draft coming up, and we'll speak on that a little bit, too. Chris Paul went to the Phoenix Suns, Jack. So Chris Paul is probably the closest thing to the Big O, to Oscar Gamble than I can remember.
Oh, come on, Mac. He's not even close to being in the Big O's category.
I'm just saying he's the closest I can think of modern day, Jack, as far as triple doubles and stuff like that. I'm not saying he is Oscar the Big O, but I'm saying that in the modern day, he's the closest that I've seen.
Style-wise, how's that?
Yes, yeah.
Style-wise.
Okay, there you go. And so Chris Paul goes there. James Harden refuses the Rockets extension. Rumors are that he may end up going to the Nets, or there's some deals behind the scenes with the Nets, with their players anyway. What are your thoughts on that, Jack?
I'm going to tell you, if I were the Nets, I would keep away from it. I know how tempting it is to get James Harden. You get the big three. You get James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. It has to feel like putting an all-star team on the court, but basically you're mortgaging your future off. And you better win a championship because you have about a 2-year window. If those guys don't win a championship in the first 2 years, the whole thing is going to be taken apart, and you're going to be right back in the position you were when you made the deal for Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce coming to the Nets. It seemed like a really appealing deal at the time because they were opening up the Barclays Center, and the Nets had a couple of good years out of it. Nothing special, certainly not close to winning a championship. And then as soon as they were done with the window with those guys, the franchise was in complete disarray. Now, for the Nets to get James Harden, they're going to have to give up their good pieces. I mean, their young pieces now, Jared Alvin, Calvin LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, plus a first round draft choice or two. It's just not worth it. Now, if they should make the deal, if they can win one championship, it would be worth it, but it's too much a gamble. Mac, one more thing. History shows us when these guys make the bold move to go to another team with a win-now mentality, if they don't win immediately, the whole thing's doomed for failure. Russell Westbrook going to Houston. After 1 year, he wants out. Okay? Paul George going to OKC. He had 2 years there, then he wanted out. It would be the same thing with James Harden. And I don't think the three of them would coexist because someone would have to make a major sacrifice. And you can't count on it being Kyrie Irving because Kyrie Irving is the loose cannon there. And Kevin Durant is too great a player to sacrifice his game too much to accommodate James Harden.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about people that love having the ball. The defense side would hurt a little bit, and I agree with you 100% on the young team. I mean, they were in the playoffs without Kyrie and without Durant. In fact, they looked like they were going in the right direction, and they still made their playoffs this year, even though people opted out and there was dysfunction there. I think there's going to be more dysfunction there, especially with Kyrie there. Can Harden share the ball? Can Harden play defense? I don't think the answer to either of those questions are yes. So, I mean, I've seen teams that have scorers before, a lot of scorers, and normally it doesn't work out. You got to have a defense still. I mean, even if you look at the Lakers, Jack, I mean, you see LeBron letting Anthony Davis have his due. Anthony Davis and LeBron James both play defense. I don't see it working out. I really don't. I mean, it would be a great draw. I mean, the sales would go through the roof. They would be a contender, but to go to where I think they would want to go to, which would be a championship, I don't see it, Jack. I just don't see it.
Mac, even the coaching chemistry would be fascinating. If Harden came to the Nets, Mike D'Antoni is an assistant coach under Steve Nash.
Right.
Nash and D'Antoni have a great relationship from their days in Phoenix together when Nash played under him. But Harden, who would he really go to? He would go to the assistant coach who was his head coach for years, D'Antoni, and there would be conflicts all around. Of course, if the Nets did win an NBA title, just one NBA title, it would all be worth it. But the odds are, I mean, the chemistry, I just don't like it. The Nets have enough good young players now who can accommodate a fit in great with Irving and Durant and win an NBA title right now with what they have. They have the star power right now. They don't need to blow the whole thing up to get James Harden, who has never been to an NBA Finals.
No, not at all.
They were with an NBA Finals when they lost years ago.
I
believe.
Yeah.
Did they trade him before that when they lost to the Miami Heat? having a little bit of a brain cramp.
I,
But nevertheless, James
yeah.
Harden hasn't come close to winning an NBA championship.
Yeah, I mean, great scorer. There's no doubt about it. He'll go down in history. Will definitely be in the Hall of Fame. But I just don't see that combination working to win a championship. The Milwaukee Bucks made some moves. They picked up Drew Holiday and I'm going to say Danovich, right? Am I saying it right? Danovic or Danovich?
Sacramento, yeah.
Yes. So they picked up those two to try to keep the Greek Freak happy and not for him to go anywhere else. I guess it makes them better, Jack. They've had a problem in the playoffs getting over that hump. I mean, they have a great regular season, and they finish in first, second in NBA last couple of years. But once they hit the playoffs, something happens to them. I don't know if they just run out of gas or people just say we're going to stop the Greek Freak, and that's it. So, I mean, I think this helps them out. Maybe it makes them stay there for an extension, Jack.
They gave up a lot in assets to get Drew Holiday, but he is, one of the best defensive players in the game. And
Right.
Obviously, they want to show Giannis they can win now. If they could at least go to the finals, they're hoping Giannis is going to stay. Everything is to accommodate him. The gamble here is if Giannis goes elsewhere, what have they done to the team?
Right.
That's the whole thing. Then they're going to be in arguably a start over mode if he goes elsewhere. So it's a gamble. But yeah, you want to know something? It's a gamble worth taking.
Yeah.
Because you could go 20 years not get a player the caliber Giannis.
Well, I mean, I think it's worth a shot. It does make them a little better. Maybe it puts them over the hump. I don't know if it gets them the championship, but maybe it stops them from getting knocked out in the first round. Of course, we all know that the NBA draft is coming up. The first time, I think that there'll be a draft. If I'm right, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong. There'll be a draft during the NFL. I know this will be the first time that the NBA will be, going up directly against the NFL for ratings and stuff. So this is what I saw for the top five. At 5, they have Obi Toppin at 6'9" and 220. You have Denny Avdija is 6'9". He's from Israel. He's a 6'9" small forward. LaMelo Ball from Australia, a 6'7" point guard. James Wiseman, a 7-foot center, a 7'1" center from Memphis. And number 1, from what I saw, was Anthony Edwards, a 6'4" shooting guard from Georgia. And that looks like what the top 5, at least what I read, was a top 5.
LaMelo Ball's not Australian, so when you say from Australia, he's not an Australian-born player. He's as American as could be.
Right.
His dad is quite controversial.
Definitely, and his brother ain't bad either.
No.
So, but he's playing in an Australian league, if I'm correct.
Yeah. But
okay.
Without a normal college season this past year, it's really up in the air. I mean, the elite players who are going to be drafted at the top of the draft didn't have a chance to really show their weaknesses. So it's a bit of a wild card this year in the draft, more so than in other years too. And I think you're going to see, who knows who it's going to be, a couple of the players drafted late in the first round from, let's say, 15 to 25 really emerge, as outstanding NBA players. I mean, it happens other years as well, we know. But this year, things are a little bit out of whack as far as judging and evaluating who should go where. Like the Knicks go number 8. There's talk about them moving down, but I think you're going to see that they're going to stay put in the position that they're at. And Tom Thibodeau probably has let the front office know a few of the players he might really be high on in that position. And we'll see what happens, there. And don't forget, certain teams might go for veteran players. Like, let's say the Knicks could jolt us, and for all we know, trade their number 8 overall pick for Russell Westbrook. I mean, you never know. Because Houston said they're going to play hardball with Harden and Westbrook because they're both under contract. They're not just going to give in to them and just get rid of them unless they get top value in return.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know if the Knicks in a ace spot could find anybody that would make a immediate impact. That the team has a lot of work to do. The Nets, I don't. What would happen? I mean, are they just going to pick up Harden's contract from the extension coming up, or are they actually going to trade for him, Jack? I still haven't got that through my head. So Harden turns down. He turned down the extension. Is the other team still? Is the Rockets still responsible to let him go and make a trade for this guy?
No, the Rockets could hold on to him. I think they have him under contract a couple of more years.
Okay, so the extension.
Anything.
So
they obviously will, because
right.
He's not going to do him much good there. You know, Westbrook was having are we talking Harden or Westbrook?
Well, I'm talking both together, yeah.
I know, but about Russell Westbrook, he was having a really good year until he picked up the coronavirus and had to take off.
Right.
He wasn't quite the same player after that, but they're banking on him regaining his form early in the year if he does stay with Houston. But obviously, you know, with all the talk about Harden and Westbrook wanting to leave, Houston will try to accommodate both guys, but they're going to want to do it on their terms.
Right.
And they have a rookie coach coming in, Steven Silas, okay? He was an assistant with the Mavericks a lot of years, but you don't want to burden a first-year young coach with unhappy veteran star players, because it's a recipe for failure if you do.
No doubt. I don't know if I was in Houston's spot, I don't know if I would have or make Harden stay to fulfill his contract. I mean, I can understand them trying to get some good players and value for him. But I don't know. So suppose the Nets give up two good players, they're still going to want a draft pick on top of that, I would imagine, to let Harden go. And even Westbrook, if they do allow him to go, say to look up for other contract offers, say for the Knicks or another team that he might fit in well. I mean, I guess they could get some really good draft picks and players for him, Jack. Maybe it won't hurt him as much as I think or we think. I mean,
Matt, yeah, Houston might settle with Harden and with Westbrook and be somewhat reasonable. With Harden, they're going to want a major haul. They're not going to give in for a couple of draft picks, a couple of number ones. They're going to want a major haul in return, a major one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So flipping gears real quick, Jets ex-Jamal Adams, who now is playing with the Seattle Seahawks, came out during a broadcast, and he said he fought with depression while playing with the Jets. After a loss, he came home, he sat in the dark, no phone, no TV. He claims his dad called his agent, telling his agent, I need him out of there, when his mom said, I don't want you there anymore. He said he knew it was time to go, which is really interesting that a all-pro young man has his father calling his agent and his mom telling him that he has to leave.
Well, in all fairness, his father, George Adams, played in the NFL.
Right.
His father didn't get the big deal he wanted, then got injured. So
right.
That influenced Jamal's thinking. But I will say this, he wanted to get out of there so bad. But meanwhile, he was initially trying to get a contract extension to stay with the Jets.
Correct.
Although he was saying for a while he wanted to be a Jet, he wanted to sign an extension. The Jets didn't want to do it because they had him on the contract for a couple of more years. They wanted to protect themselves against injury, and they wanted him to keep performing. Okay, so they had a little bit of a contract tug of war. When he wasn't getting the extension, then he became unhappy. Then losing wore on him more. But had he gotten that contract extension in the very beginning, chances are he'd be a Jet now, and he wouldn't be complaining.
Well, it all started, from what I remember, right, Jack, was that the team said they were listening to offers for Jamal Adams for a trade purpose. And he was all upset about that why are you which they weren't calling, why are you listening to trade, taking calls on trades? And then he turns on and forces his way out of the Jets, basically, out of the camp. The Jets did pick up a good haul for him. But what I'm saying is, listen, I think every player gets depressed after losing. I don't think there aren't too many players that don't get depressed.
I get depressed when our ratings are down for this show, man.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't understand that. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Matt Stafford, who should be extremely depressed playing under the Lions for his career, is trying to play with partially torn ligaments. And, here's a guy that if anybody should be depressed, playing with the Lions his whole career, you have Barry Sanders, you had Megatron, and now you got Matt Stafford, who could be a winning quarterback, possibly a championship quarterback on a better team, is playing for a team that hasn't done well in years with torn ligaments and not complaining.
Yeah, I mean, when you're quarterback, you feel more sense of responsibility. You feel like you're a leader of the team. So notice quarterbacks are a lot more careful on what they say. You know what came out that was interesting the other day? Archie Manning, someone I have tremendous respect for, is now backtracking and saying he had nothing to do with his son Eli deciding he wasn't going to San Diego, blah, blah, blah. We all knew at the time Archie Manning, senior, I mean, he was behind the whole thing, basically, because and Eli's agent at the time had a lot to do with it as well.
Sure.
Because the way Archie Manning saying, well, the Chargers came out of this really good with Phillip Rivers, who he thinks should be a Hall of Famer, and the Giants came out good with Eli. He's absolutely right on that account. But sometimes, there's a lot of involvement on the outside. Like what you mentioned with Jamal Adams, his father, his mother, they would talk to him, so on, but it became more a point of contention with Jamal Adams when he didn't get the contract extension from the Jets. And you want to know something? He hasn't gotten the contract extension from Seattle yet. Let's see what happens at the end of the year if he doesn't get it. I think he will, because he's a terrific safety. But
the funny part of that is, Jack, if he was so depressed playing with the Jets losing, he's got to be depressed with the Seattle Seahawks right now, losing as they've been losing.
It's not as bad as it does.
I understand. I just love the way
even though they've hit a skid.
I just love the way people say things like he was depressed because he was losing, and like no other player gets depressed when they're losing. And I don't want to segue into this, but we have backstage right now our Philly sports guy who's probably depressed also, and we're going to bring him on right now.
He's in first place.
He's in first place, exactly. Controller on Destiny. So here's the Philly sports guy coming on. He has his own Facebook page. He's on TikTok. He's on other social media, very popular, knows a lot about Philly sports, and, of course, a great Philly fan, and we're going to bring him up right now. How you doing, Philly sports guy?
How you doing, Mac? Thank you for having me. Jack, it's good to meet you. I missed you last week.
I saw you last week. You look like a different man this week.
I tell you, I only get painted up when I feel like they deserve it, and they did not deserve it this week.
Let me tell you something. The Eagles have a little more of a cushion than most first-place teams, technically speaking, having a game and a half over the Giants, the second-place team. So technically speaking, if the Eagles beat Cleveland, then it's a winnable game this weekend. They'll have a 2-game cushion, which is pretty nice.
Again, they can't come out like they did this week, even against Cleveland. I mean, these are professional football players, and I felt very uninspired by their performance after a bye week against the Giants. This is the Giants that we've beaten 8 times, 9 times in a row, and now, to come out and just lay an egg like that after a bye week was very difficult to watch.
Let's talk about the game a little bit. It looked like the Giants were dominating on each side of the ball. The offensive line was getting movement. the defensive line was doing. I mean, they did well. I thought that the Eagles should have kept running the ball. Honestly, I mean, they were running the ball with Sanders, and I mean, I don't know why they stopped. I wouldn't have stopped running the ball until the Giants stopped me. But it did look like the Giants' offensive line was definitely making the running game seems like it's coming together. I don't know why you guys have a real problem with the quarterback keeper. The option when the quarterback runs with the ball. It seems like you guys in all games are having problems with that. But I do agree. Where was the fire? Where was the fire, Philly guy?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. When I seem like I'm the most excited guy in shoulder pads for the day, that's a frustrating day for me to see. Just the entire situation, like the defensive line, the way that they were getting moved around, the Giants' offensive line isn't that good. And last week I mentioned that I thought that the 3 yards on either side of the ball is where we are. Where we typically dominate, and they did not dominate at all. The defense was getting a good amount of pressure. There's so many different things that we could talk about that the Eagles just did wrong in this game, going 0 for 9 on third down. It wasn't until 7 minutes left in the third quarter that they rolled Carson Wentz out. They rolled him out twice, got 40 yards of offense in those 2 plays. And then they didn't roll him back out again, and I don't understand. Boston Scott is traditionally a giant killer, and he gets 3 carries, 1 carry breaks for 55 yards, and let's not give him the ball anymore.
Weird, right?
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, Doug Peterson, he didn't hire an offensive coordinator this year. He decided he was going to be in charge of the play calling duties, correct?
Correct.
He's come under a lot of criticism for that.
Well, and it's like an offensive coordinator by committee where they have him, Deuce Staley, and Marty Mornhinweg. Now, I have never personally been a Marty Mornhinweg fan. Since from when he was coaching Detroit, you kind of saw how things were going over there. And I know that he's got some offensive mind, but he's definitely not Frank Reich, where he was a little bit more innovative. And that's where we had some of the issues that I think that we're having with the offense now. Plus, now you have Doug Peterson, who is calling an uninspired game. Like, he just can't seem to get beyond. Like, he can't seem to figure out to run the ball. We had 156 yards of rushing, yet we're not going to run the ball more because they can't seem to stop us there. But we're going to keep trying to pass it on third down. We're going to keep trying to do the things that aren't working. And it was very, very frustrating game to watch. And then, the 4th and 1 on the 2-yard line from the Giants that he went flying into the end zone. It was
Bauman
like he
over
took
the top.
it was like, first off, Fletcher Cox is the biggest guy on the field. And the fact that he didn't even stand up to stop that was just very, very frustrating.
Cox lost a step?
No, I don't think he's lost a step. I think that it's so I think he's get doubled all the time. So, and because he's been getting doubled this year, you've been seeing Sweat and Jernigan and Brandon Graham get the lion's share of the tackles and the sacks, which is what's supposed to happen. When you're getting double teams, you're clogging up the 1, the 3, and the 5 gap in that spot, so that you have to have the other guys. They don't have enough guys to be able to block the other 3. So that's the way that should be, and that makes a lot of sense. I felt that maybe he had just a really bad game. It was just, I don't know what else to explain it as. It was just a difficult game to watch. Even though he did get a sack in the game, it was just uninspired.
Yeah, Philly guy, I did a little bit of coaching anyway, and I found that a lot of offensive coordinators try to be scientists instead of just going with what wins and what's working. I mean, if you looked at the Tennessee Titans last year, they hand the ball off to big Derrick Henry, stop them. And they can't. They keep giving the ball to Derrick Henry, and of course they do play action pass off it once in a while. But I don't understand offensive coordinators in general when they start doing different things. When something's working, they come away from it too fast. And you guys definitely came away from it too fast against the Giants because you were really running the ball really well. So I was watching a sports radio WIP with Angelo Cataldi. I'm going to say it right.
Cataldi. Angelo Cataldi.
Thank you. And on the morning show, he had the head coach on, and he said 72% of the fans blame him for the Eagles' loss, and he almost hung up. Do you blame the head coach for it, Philly guy?
Some.
Okay.
Some. In fact, unfortunately, the 72% really is the amount of blame that I have to put onto him. Actually, I give it a little bit less because I give a lot more blame to Schwartz as well on the defensive side. I thought that he called a very poor game as well. It's interesting because I listened to that. I don't start my Monday morning until I listen to Doug Peterson, and I listen in the car, and just the way that they did that whole intro. How do you come on after following that? He's like, "Thanks, Angelo. I can hang up right now," because and you could tell that he was very angry, as he should have been. I mean, because it's a tough mirror to look into. Not only are you looking in the mirror because you had a bad game yourself, but then your whole team played so uninspired. And you're in first place. You're supposed to be the one that's motivating these guys. And to see that they are just not doing it, making critical mistakes at critical times, making 11 penalties. I mean, there was like 3 offside penalties by wide receivers. That's first off, I've never even heard of that in a game before, let alone to have it happen over and over again. And just even the last real play of the game where we stopped them, we're going to get the ball back. And I mean, it was a little bit of a touchy penalty that they gave them, 15 yards. But it was like the refs were like, done with this game. We don't want to see anymore. We're going to give this guy a penalty, and the Giants win the game.
Criticizing Doug Peterson is fair, but to even suggest he should be on the hot seat is outrageous. I mean, the man
I agree with that.
Super Bowl. If he looks himself in the mirror, all he has to do is hold up his hand. And there's a Super Bowl ring he delivered to the Eagles. Okay?
And I agree with that.
Coaches like Andy Reid, Dick Vermeil, etc., couldn't deliver. And
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. I don't think that this is a hot seat year. I mean, he's been to the playoffs, 4 out of the 4 years in a row. We're still in first place here, and it's hard to think about that when you have a 3-5-1 record that you're not playing very well ball, but. The Eagles seem to play their best ball when they are backs up against the wall. And that's what they did in 2017, 2018, even last year when they couldn't afford to lose another game. Next thing you know, we're winning out and winning the NFC East. I feel like that this team is a veteran team, that there isn't much youth on the team. And if it is going to be a second half team, we seem to turn it on always, even in the games, we turn it on in the fourth quarter. That here it is, we're getting close to the fourth quarter of the season now, and we better start to really get the ball moving. As I said last week, this was a team I thought was going to come out and start to right the ship. Well, they didn't right the ship. In fact, the ship is sinking even more. So we got to start getting more buckets and start throwing the water back overboard again, or it's really going to sink.
Well, I think the problem is, I think this Sunday it's a winnable game. But I was going to ask you, what grade would you give the Eagles defense? Because the key to the game is Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt for Cleveland. I look for a low-scoring game, and Cleveland has an excellent running game. Can Philadelphia stop Cleveland's running game? Because if they can, then it absolutely is a winnable game.
Well, and I feel that that's really one of our strengths. Now, obviously, Morris likes to kill us, and the Giants were able to run the ball, and they were doing different things. I mean, you had Jones run for 60-some yards, Morris run for 50-some yards. It was a running back by committee, and they wound up running for 151 yards. You take away Daniel Jones running for those 60 yards, and it really was about 100 yards rushing, 90 yards rushing, which is what's typical with the Eagles defense and the front four. And I expect that that's going to be the case again. I can imagine, and I was listening to a number of Brandon Graham interviews, and he has a show on WIP as well, and I was listening how those guys were really angry at themselves at their performance. And if they're going to take that out against Cleveland, because I feel that if you try to make Baker Mayfield win the game, he's not going to do it. He's going to be able to turn the ball over. He's going to make bad decisions. But the running game is really where they have their strength. And if we can hold them under 100 yards, that we're going to have a really good chance to win the game. Now, I also feel, I'm sorry.
Philly guy, that tandem is probably, Hunt and the name is out of my mind right now, but the Hunt and Chubb is probably the best tandem rushing in the league. I mean, and they got a heck of a running game. You're right. If Baker Mayfield has to throw the ball, the Browns are going to be in trouble. It's all key to stopping the run, as you say. The Browns defense, let's not forget about them too. I mean, the Browns they have a solid defense, and they put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So again, here comes your running game. I think it's going to be key that your running game takes over again. I wouldn't trust Wentz against the Cleveland defense throwing the ball. I really wouldn't.
Well, he's going to have somebody back that hasn't been there for a few weeks, and I know he's not having the best year, but Ertz is coming back. And the one thing that Ertz is able to do is he's the relief valve at 4 and 5 yards. Yeah. And that's where some of these quick passes are going to be able to start to get hit again, where I think that you saw exactly what was being missed. Rodgers really came in great, and I feel like he was probably one of our best receivers, specifically against the Giants. However, he only got 2 passes thrown his way, and he caught both of them. The Ertz coming back and having him and Goddard and going with this big package where we haven't been able to do that for the last few weeks, I think is going to really start to play a factor moving forward, because it's going to force the Eagles to have to run more and do these short dink and dunk passes rather than waiting for the big play. And then they'll be able to send guys long. Alshon Jeffrey coming back wasn't a big deal. It seemed to me like I didn't expect him to do much because he's got to get back into game shape. It's like he was there on the field, but he was a non-factor. And the other receivers are still trying to figure out, because now they're looking at Alshon Jeffrey as, okay, well, he's back to being the number 1 receiver, so we all just took a step back. So Fulgham didn't get as many receptions, and Ward didn't do as well. I think that once they get everybody back and they play a couple of games together, I think that's part of the thing too, that you're getting these people back and they're getting thrown in there and they're rusty. And so you got to start to get some cohesiveness as a team together to start to be able to do something and move forward. And they just didn't show that against the Giants. And I feel that they didn't even practice well enough to be able to show that against the Giants. So I'm hoping that that's what happens.
You're saying the Eagles have upside if they do stagger into the playoffs, reinforcements are going to be back, and they can be a much better team come playoff time? Is that what you think?
I hope so. I like I said, I feel that.
We know what you hope.
Yeah. So, and I feel my thoughts is that the Eagles are going to be a tough opponent in the playoffs if they make it. That's the thing. And it's going to, I felt that some of the plays that they took off and they lost was a culture situation. It had nothing to do with play. It had to do with the feeling about the team in general. And when it's a culture situation, I get really angry, because this was supposed to be the new norm, as they expressed it 3 years ago. We made the playoffs last year on fighting for every inch to get into the playoffs, and we did that. And they're not fighting for those inches right now. And unless they start to do that, and if they can start to put that together, it's going to be a formidable team, because we do have the playoff experience moving forward.
You do have the future's in your hand. You if you win out or win more games than the Giants, which right now, I'll tell you right now, and I'm being honest, and this is not because of fandom, the Giants just look like a better team Sunday than the Eagles did. Running the ball on defense, a little problem stopping the run, but against the pass, they were very good. And the Browns have a tough time beating good teams. So I don't think the Eagles are a bad team. I think the Eagles are a solid team. And as Jack said, I do think this is very winnable for them. If you lose against the Browns, I'm not ready to hit the panic button yet, but, I mean, you guys have got to beat the Browns this week. You've got to beat them.
Yeah, I want to say it's as close to a must-win situation for a non-conference game. Yeah, we just need to keep that cushion. Because if we lose this game, the Giants come out of their bye week, and we have even if we win and they win, I mean that half game is really going to get touchy. It's like that tie comes into play. It acts as a win almost, but it's not really a win. And that's the frustrating part with all this, that it's getting a little too close for comfort, and we should be just a much better team, and we're not. And that's the frustrating part. And that's why a lot of that blame has to go to Doug Peterson. He's got to be the one that looks in the mirror and says, I have to be better. And does that mean handing off the play calling to somebody else? I don't know that I want Marty calling the plays. And I don't know that Deuce has the ability to do it just yet. So, but I don't know that until we show that. And Doug's got to be able to release some of that and delegate that out. And I don't know that he's willing to do that either.
There hasn't been a big quarterback trade in the NFL for decades, quarterback for quarterback. I mean, it would be intriguing if the Eagles wanted to move on from Wentz and maybe the Bears for Mitch Trubisky, like a one-on-one, or if at the end of the year, Baker Mayfield isn't quite working out with Cleveland and they want to trade him for Carson Wentz. I mean, is a major quarterback deal feasible somewhere down the line if the contract situations can work out?
Who would want? So I don't know that I'd be interested in doing something like that. And Howie is a wheeler and dealer, but I don't believe that he's going to. He gave up so much to get Carson Wentz. To do that type of trade would then signify that even though we got a Super Bowl out of that it was a failure. And I don't know that he's willing to give that, to say that about the franchise quarterback, that he gave up everything. He had to undo everything of Chip Kelly's to be able to get to Carson Wentz. And ultimately it achieved the Super Bowl ring. But to do a trade, like I don't know that a Baker Mayfield's going to make this team any better. I don't know. And we spoke last week. Hurts is definitely not going to make this team better. He's not NFL ready yet. I felt that was one of the biggest frustrations I had. You had Carson Wentz start to get into a little bit of a rhythm. He had 3 passes in a row. The next play, they bring in, Hurts to do that.
We don't like that.
And he fumbled the ball. And it was like, are you kidding me? Now we're just starting to get in some momentum, and you just killed it. And that was like, and calm down with the 2-point conversions. All right. Calm down. All right. Like, I don't know. I understand that if you get a 2-point conversion when you're down by 4 and you make it, well, you have a bigger percentage on winning the game. However, if you miss it, what he didn't say is that if you miss it, you have a much larger percentage on losing the game.
I hate chasing the points.
Exactly.
And you are so right with Fields. I don't understand. They know he's going to run with the ball. Everyone knows it. He never throws the ball. I just don't get I don't get that play. I just don't get that play. And they keep doing it, and they keep not getting yards. I don't get it at all.
And they were talking about how they put Carson Wentz out wide, like he's going to be a receiver, but ultimately that makes it 10 on 10.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, our 10 guys aren't as good as their 10 guys, and those plays are not working. It worked a couple of times, but now it's not working anymore. So what do you do? Like, do you take them off the field and you put in a receiver over there? Why? Because Hurts isn't going to throw the ball anyways. We know he's going to run. I'm tired of seeing that play. I would have much rather seen Hurts as a tailback do the wishbone and pitch it back and have him throw the ball that way. You know what I mean? That would be a much – because NFL teams don't see that.
Yeah.
You brought
up a great point last week of maybe using him as a slot receiver and then throwing gadgets out of that, let him run reverses, stuff like. I mean, if you're going to do it, do it. But I mean, to run the Wildcat, he's not going to throw the football. Doesn't really make that much sense to me. Listen, it's still early in the season. Everything's still up for grabs. I still don't count the Redskins out. Dallas, I'm not too sure about this year, but I think it's going to come down, it looks like, to the Eagles and the Giants, and we'll see what happens. I mean, we're 1-for-1 in tiebreakers. You got that tie, which might win you the division. It might do that. So we'll see what happens. You got Cleveland next week. Again, you're right. They got to stop that Cleveland run. If they don't, they're in trouble.
Philly man, going into the past, Mac and myself had a bit of a debate. I think you're going to side with Mac on this one. Philly wide receivers. Who was greater, Tommy McDonald or Harold Carmichael? Which one would you rather have?
See,
Tommy
now
McDonald was before your time.
it was, but Harold Carmichael is my all-time favorite
There you go.
Eagle.
You're siding with Mac.
Yeah, so it's literally, like, I remember in third grade writing an essay about Harold Carmichael. I only got a C+ on that essay, and I'm still upset at the teacher about it.
Yeah.
But it was definitely, he's been my all-time favorite player. Even like Dawkins and Westbrook and all of those other players that have come through, all those greats. So unfortunately I would have to do that. Although Tommy was Tommy, and I'm a big historian as well. So I have gone back and watched as many games as I could and watched him be able to play. And he really was amazing back in the day when football was football.
Guy who did big things.
Well, Harold Carmichael was one of the 6'8" wide receiver who had coordination. He was just not there for the red zone. A man could run a pattern too, and he used to kill the Giants. I mean, forget. I don't even want to get into it.
Yeah.
But again, thank you for coming in again this Wednesday. Hopefully, we have you back on again next Wednesday. I don't know if you want me to give your real name out or not. That's why I keep calling you.
You can. I go by Jamie, which is obviously what I look like right now without the makeup. And hey, listen, I was hoping maybe we'd get a quick second to talk about some basketball. We got an NBA draft happening, and we got pick number 21.
How about we do that? How about we do that next week? We talk about a little 76er basketball, the draft, and what we expect for the 76ers. And we'll talk about both the Eagles and the 76ers next week. Does that sound good to you?
I just want to ask quickly, is there a 2% chance the Sixers work out a deal for Joel Embiid in the next week?
There you go.
So I've heard some rumors and things like that. It's going to be a matter of who we're going to have to give up for it, and that's the hard part. Is it going to be a 21st? The 21st pick isn't enough. So you'd have to start giving up people. And I don't know that we have the personnel that's going to be able to make that deal done. But again, I don't know this GM well enough. So the big talk right now is the whole Simmons for Harden. And would we do that deal? I personally would not. I'm a big age guy, and Harden's starting to come down towards the back end. Even though he's a surefire Hall of Famer, I don't know that you're going to be able to get 5 years out of him where you can still get the 5 years from Simmons. But I'm interested to watch what's happening today because there's a renewed vigor on the Sixers right now that hasn't been here for a couple of years. The process has gone stagnant. Yeah. And now it feels like it's maybe back on track. There was a lot of people unhappy with Brown for a while, and now we've got Doc in town, and it's guys named Doc in Philly seem to do really well. So I'm excited for this season.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into the new coach. We'll definitely get into the draft and see what happens in the trades when we have you back on next week, along to celebrate the Eagles win over the Browns there, Jamie. So great having you on. We'll have you again next week. A new friend of the show come on, another great guest, very knowledgeable. And thank you for coming on again. The Philly sports guy, Jamie, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Okay, you too.
You too. So there you go, Jack, the Philly sports guy. We can even use his real name from now on. He doesn't mind. So that's great.
Let me tell you something. I get the feeling between the Eagles, 76ers, and Philadelphia Phillies and Flyers, the Eagles are the most compelling story in Philadelphia. That's why we talk about them. Yeah.
Well, we had to. He was introduced as a Philly sports guy with the Philly shoulder pads and the paint up. So that's what we went with. But as we spoke off air, me and Jamie did. He covers all the Philly sports. I mean, Philly sports is huge, Jack. I mean, the Philly fans are very, very into their team. All teams, the 76ers are huge. The Flyers are huge, and the Philadelphia Phillies, too, we'll be able to talk about with them. And they've got an interesting thing going on there right now. So what we're going to do, Jack, we'll take a quick break. I'll come back on the other side. I got a trivia question for you. I know you're going to love, as you always do. And we'll be circling over the standings. We'll have a lot of fun here coming up next. So people come on and stay with us, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local. I don't know how to say it, Jack. But anyway, we're gonna have our commercials. We'll be back in about 3-4 minutes.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young. I don't need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and we'll be over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm Mac with my co-host Jack Hirsch. We just had the Philly guy on giving us his Eagles update and in perspective on what the Philadelphia Eagles did last week against the Giants, what they're going to do against Cleveland. He'll be on every Wednesday with us. And we'll even get into basketball with them next week. You know, they got an exciting thing going out there with a new head coach and the draft coming up. So it'll be some great information. And we'll talk about what happened during the Cleveland game. Jack, I want to do a quick read for you here on a commercial we have on our website. If you go to macandjacksports.com, the name of the website is Mac Sports Insiders, where Jack is also a part of that website. Go and check out Jack and see what he's done in his career and what he's up to. So if you want to get the clothing of your favorite teams, jerseys, hats, all gear, we have the place for you, Fanatics. Just go again to the macandjacksports.com website, Mac Sports Insiders, and click on their link. It brings you right to their store just in time for Christmas. Order for your special someone's birthday or just treat yourself to your favorite team's clothing and gear. That's macandjacksports.com website, Mac Sports Insiders, for all your sports clothing and gear, Jack. So every day, Jack, so far I've been coming up with some trivia questions for you, and it seems like you kind of got a losing streak going here, and hopefully we can
kind of with an asterisk next to the losing streak, because some of the questions with the squad, and I knew 25% of the answer I got correct.
Oh, Jack. I'm going to give you a real chance today to get the correct answer. I'm going to give you a multiple guess question. They call them multiple choice.
You're showing pity on me now. Come on.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity because I think you're like 0 for 8 or something, the last 8 questions. And, you know, and this is the NBA. You know something about the NBA. I mean, you follow the NBA very well. So we're going to go back to Vince Carter, who was a great NBA player. And all I want from you is which team drafted Vince Carter. And these are your 3 choices: the Charlotte Hornets, Golden State Warriors, or the Toronto Raptors, Jack?
That was the Toronto Raptors, correct?
No, Jack,
That's
it is
where he
not.
played most of his career. Wait. I think of him. He's going into the Hall of Fame as a Toronto Raptor.
Yeah, that wasn't the question, Jack. The question was, Jack, who drafted Vince Carter? And the correct answer to that is, believe it or not, the Golden State Warriors, Jack, are the ones that drafted.
Believe it or not, I mean, I'm wrong, flat out. I have no real recollection of him playing for Golden State.
Right.
I don't know why. I just don't have a recollection.
Right.
I think of him predominantly as a Toronto Raptor.
Correct.
Well, I know he's kicked around for his career. He's played forever. But when he was supposedly the next Michael Jordan or the next wave of the NBA, he did his charismatic things as a Toronto Raptor with all his amazing leaping ability. And
right.
I don't know why. Some guys are just ingrained in your head with one team so much you can't get it out. You know, I was stumped on that one cleanly.
Very true. I would have said the same answer, Jack, if I didn't look it up, because when I saw the trivia question, I said it's got to be Toronto. but it isn't. It's Golden State, which is kind of crazy. That's so, and as you say, a lot of teams draft certain players, but they don't end up playing with those teams anyway. So, Jack, let's go over the NFL standings so we can get everybody kind of caught up.
Let me give you a trivia question, Mac.
What's
If I
that?
don't get this right. Who drafted Eli Manning?
The San Diego Chargers, Jack.
Right. No one would imagine that in a multiple choice question. If
Yeah.
that was told years from now, it's
Well, you picked a team I'm a fan of too, so I'm very
no, I
heavily.
knew you would get it right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you said Jay Cutler,
Unlike how you pitch to me, I pitch underhand to you.
yes, you do. You set me right up to hit that ball far, Jack. So let's get to the NFL standings, and we're going to start in the AFC East, Jack. The Bills lose on a Hail Mary pass. I'll get it right, Jack. I'll get it right. Oh, my God, my mouth is not working today. Lose on a Hail Mary pass by Kyle Murray to Andre Hopkins. Hopkins. What am I talking about, Jack? I'm all over the place today. But to Andre Hopkins, the big signing they made in the offseason, and it came to help him out, especially during this game. He jumped in between two
I
Bills.
want to talk about that play, Mac.
I do too. The TD catch, hold on a second, to make that TD catch, and it was basically on the last play of the game. Before you get to it, let me describe the play a little bit, because believe it or not, that play was designed, Jack. When Kyle Murray took off to the left-hand side, the guard pulled to do a hook block to catch anybody following him. The guard didn't make the block. Kyle Murray broke the tackle, went to the sidelines at a great amount of speed. Some people say it was as fast as he could run. I don't think so. But he still did make that dash to the sideline, turn, and fire the ball 50 yards in the air to Hopkins, who made an outstanding catch. Great game. And go ahead about that, Jack.
You call it a design play, and I'm not doubting you. I'm sure it was somewhat designed in an emergency, but the way Murray threw the football, he threw it very unnaturally, basically, as he was moving just to get rid of it. He was under duress. One guy was coming at him from one angle, someone else from the front. He had to get rid of it immediately in desperation. Yeah. And DeAndre Hopkins has been given, it seems, the bulk of the credit for that play. And really, it was Kyler Murray. He put the ball in there perfectly. I mean, the only way Buffalo was going to get beat was on a perfect throw. And from that position, it was astonishing. Now, when other quarterbacks have done things like that, Aaron Rodgers with the Hail Mary, we don't even remember for the most part who even caught the ball. When Doug Flutie threw his Hail Mary in college, we don't even remember for the most part who caught the ball. We just remember the quarterbacks throwing it. Right. But in this case, we remember more DeAndre Hopkins catching it. It was a great catch by DeAndre Hopkins, but let's be honest about it. Had DeAndre Hopkins not caught the ball, it came out of his hands, we would have said it was a catchable ball.
Yeah.
Murray's throw wasn't a throwable ball from the angle he was at, and it's astonishing he could put the ball in there perfectly between three Buffalo defenders.
Yeah, it was, what I'm saying was designed, if you watch the play, Jack, the play was designed to go to Fitzgerald on a crossing route to the outside. They want to get him out of bounds so they would be in position for a field goal. The Bills had Fitzgerald covered. He was too covered to throw the ball, and this was basically throw a jump ball to DeAndre Hopkins, and DeAndre Hopkins made a heck of a catch. It was a great throw. I agree with that, and this is what I mean by it was designed. That's why the guard pulled out to block his backside for anybody chasing Murray. The Dolphins win. They tied with the Bills in losses right now, so they're basically in second place. The Bills have one more game that they played. The Patriots, with impressive come-from-behind win against the Ravens, are 4-5, and the Jets, they didn't lose Sunday because they didn't play, Jack. They weren't a bye.
Well, let me tell you, the Patriots have a chance to get up to 500 this week. If they do, great. If the Patriots go 8-8 on the season, to me, that season's been a kind of a semi-success, believe it or not. Not
Yeah.
what they set out to do in the beginning of the year, but if they could avoid a losing record during a basically rebuilding year, I mean, it would say a lot about Bill Belichick, and he doesn't need anything more said about him because obviously he's one of the great coaches of all time.
So I think an even bigger story, Jack, is the Ravens. The Ravens lose again. Have the Ravens been figured out, Jack? Is it because Jackson isn't your typical quarterback that's consistent and puts the ball on the money when he's drop back passer? They're making him pass the ball, Jack. And I know the rain was terrible, the snaps were terrible. The center made a couple terrible snaps to Jackson, but are the Ravens figured out now? I mean, they seem to have been taking a step back. And what's your thoughts on that?
We keep talking Lamar Jackson. The Raven defense hasn't been that good this year. No one talks about the Raven defense. It's all focused on Lamar Jackson and the lack of a passing game that the Ravens have had. But the Raven defense, they've got to get it together if they're going to make a serious Super Bowl run.
Well, I mean, you should be happy. You've been talking about the fullback leading the running back, and that's exactly what the Patriots did last week.
Yeah.
I remember them doing it last year during the playoffs, and that extra fullback in there helped open some big holes for the Patriots running back. So, so Dolphins, the Bills with their loss, they're pretty much in a virtual tie with the Dolphins. The Patriots at 4-5. One more question on that, Jack. Suppose the Patriots go 8-8, or even suppose they hit 9-7. Do they sign Cam Newton again, or do they let him go?
I don't think long-term Newton's the answer. I really don't. He's good. He could fill in for a year, so on. And I know he had a long run at Carolina. He was there for 9 years, won an MVP. And he's a good plug-in, basically, for the most part. I don't think going forward, if you're talking about a franchise quarterback, someone who's going to be a guy for years, no question asked, it's not Cam Newton. It's going to be interesting what's going to be with Cam at the end of the year, because I don't think there's going to be a big market for him, not as a starter. Teams are going to want him primarily as a backup. So he's going to have to maybe accept that role. And New England's in a little bit of a spot, too. Who are they going to get to quarterback their team next year if it's not Cam?
Yeah.
I mean, I had a thought that maybe the Niners would move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, and he would be a perfect fit to go back to New England. But Mike Shanahan says he's absolutely going to be the 49er quarterback next year. And Garoppolo's out with an injury now. So, we'll see how it unfolds.
The AFC West, the Chiefs stand at the top of the West, probably still the favorite, I think, in the AFC to go to the Super Bowl at 8-1. The Raiders have a winning streak going, Jack. 3 games and sitting second at 6.
Andy Reid is ticked off. Maybe he's using it to motivate his team. The Chiefs have lost 1 game this year, and they lost at Arrowhead Stadium, and that was to the Raiders, who they're playing this weekend. After the game, John Gruden, being the happy guy he is, ordered the bus to go around a few times. I take a victory lap around the stadium. So the Raider bus rode around the stadium. I mean, I never heard of anything like that before. Andy Reid got wind of it. He's ticked off. Maybe it's a motivational ploy. I don't know. But if the Raiders should win this game, they're for real.
Yeah.
Then they're absolutely for real. That means they would have handed the Chiefs the only 2 losses of the season, and there'll be only 1 game behind the Chiefs, meaning if they should tie them by the end of the year, the Raiders would actually win the division and have the tiebreaker. With that said, the Chiefs are just too good. I know I said it before the first game, the Chiefs would beat the Raiders easy, but now the Chiefs are really motivated, and they should take care of business, I would think.
I would think, too. I think now they won't underestimate the Raiders either. So then the Raiders are followed by the Broncos, and then the Chargers, of course. So, I mean, 2 young teams at the bottom, the Broncos and the Chargers, but they still play competitive. I think, again, that they're on the rise, and if they don't do anything this year, they'll definitely make noise next year. The AFC North, the Steelers still the only undefeated team in the league, Jack, at 9-0 with an old-fashioned backyard whooping of the Bengals. The Ravens, of course, losing to the Pats. They fall to 6-3 with the Browns. And, the running game of the Browns, again, is probably the best in the league. They're going against Philly next week. That'll be interesting to see if the Eagles can stop that running game. If they can't, the Eagles are in trouble. And the Bengals are still in last place, coming off the bye. That's who the Giants have. Jack, Steelers, are they the second best team in AFC?
Let me tell you, no, the Steelers are 9-0. Right. Normally, when a team gets to 9-0, there are a few little whispers. Can they go unbeaten for the year?
Right.
A few little whispers. They're none at all with the Steelers.
Right.
I mean, and even though they're playing a Jacksonville team that's 1-8, Mike Tomlin recognizes the dangers by saying all the respect he has for the Jaguars. Normally, that's just coaches talk, but I think Mike Tomlin actually believes it. The Steeler passing game hasn't been that good this year. Just hasn't been that good. They were better the last game, and it's a kind of a sneaky game. Jacksonville has been competitive. They're playing at home. James Robinson, Jacksonville running back, has had 300-yard plus rushing games.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me if Jacksonville actually won the game, because the Steelers are due, for a bump in the road. So I really feel that's good value. The Steelers are favored by 10 points. I'm not suggesting anyone bets, and they shouldn't bet, but 10 points seems very good value for Jacksonville, who might just shock the Steelers and win the game outright.
Yeah, every week it gets tougher and tougher to go undefeated, Jack, as history has shown us. In the AFC South, the Colts are tied with the Titans, 6-3. Thursday, of course, they beat the Titans, and they're followed by the Texans and Jags. The Jags, who have lost 8 in a row. So that's what you're talking about as far as maybe a setup game. You might be right. The Texans, what the heck happened, Jack? I mean, here they were in the playoffs last year. They looked good. They looked like they were. I know Hopkins left, but you still had a good quality team there, and it looks like they're just lost, Jack.
Texans are cooked. Now, Texans are so dysfunctional, they might do anything. If I were the Jets, no one has talked this way. This is the first you heard of it anywhere. If I'm the Jets and I get the number 1 overall draft choice, Trevor Lawrence is there for me, I trade with Houston, who I think would make a deal, and I get Deshaun Watson. I get a proven top-of-the-line NFL quarterback with a lot of upside, who's playing for a dysfunctional team, who's already shown he could get it done in the NFL, who's already shown he can be an NFL star, who's young, got the experience. I trade that number 1 overall pick for Deshaun Watson. Basically, you're trading Trevor Lawrence for Deshaun Watson, and Houston might do it because Houston looks to be in a start-over mode. I don't even think J.J. Watt's going to be there next year, and he is arguably the most iconic Houston football player of all time. And I don't think he's going to be there. All due respect to Earl Campbell, who might be the most iconic, but I'm just saying J.J. Watt's a legend in Houston, but even he might think it's time to move on because the Texans are really dysfunctional. And this is a great opportunity for New England this weekend to go 5-5, even out their record. Because if New England can't beat a Texan team that's 2-7 and just sliding backwards, then the year's completely lost for New England.
Well, I mean, do you think the Jets would take on that big contract, Jack? I mean, you're talking a huge contract with Watson right now.
Well, if they don't, they're eventually going to have to take on a huge contract with Sam Darnold, right?
True.
And I think it's more than money. I think Deshaun Watson is a sure thing. There are no doubts about him. Trevor Lawrence, no rookie's absolutely a sure thing, even though Trevor Lawrence is as close to it as can be coming out of college. He's supposed to be a good kid as well. But what a deal that would be, right? I mean, Houston looking to change their culture and everything, kind of like in a start new mode. You can't start any better, or you can't start over any better than starting with a Trevor Lawrence. And I think
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know if Watson has a no trade clause or he has to approve the trade. I don't know if he would be happy going
He'll
to
approve the trade. Houston isn't the most appealing place to be at the right time.
Well,
I mean,
the Jets are,
James Harden's dominating the news. He's trying to get out of town.
I think that
I'm going to say it, but if he can go to the Jets, he'll welcome the chance.
I'll tell you, I don't know, Jack. I mean, it doesn't look like too many people want to play for the Jets right now. I think maybe they would have to move the head coach.
Well, Watson would have no choice. He'd be traded.
Well, yeah, it depends on his contract, Jack. He may have a no trade
no, he's too young a player to have a no trade.
You don't. I don't know. I would have to look at the contract. I don't think you saw the contract either, Jack. So I mean, I'm not just going to say that. You might be right. You maybe more than 50% right. But you know, when you offer somebody that amount of money to be your franchise quarterback, I would imagine that there might be some clauses in that contract to either he wants to get out or that he wants to stay. I think there might be something in there for that, but you might be right. In the NFC least, the Giants beat the Eagles, both teams with 3 wins, but Philly has 1 less loss and that tie that might come into play at the end of the year. Washington gets a terrible roughing the passer penalty at the end of the game where he just pushed Stafford and they call him for roughing the passer after he threw it. That allows Detroit to go down and win the game, and the Cowboys have lost 4 in a row. Did you see that roughing the passer call on Washington, Jack?
No, I actually never saw the clip of it. I never saw the clip.
It's ridiculous.
But I heard Chase Young put himself in a bad position where they could make the call. I'm not passing judgment on it, not having seen it. But sometimes you have to be careful just not to put yourself in the position where the quarterback could maybe exaggerate a little or the official is overly sensitive and blowing the whistle.
Oh my God, Jack! I mean, if he did this to him, he did a lot. And I mean, he just threw the ball. It might have been 1 or 2 steps away. You're supposed to have 2 to 3 steps to the quarterback so you can hit him. He pushed his back on his shoulders. He fell down. They threw a flag. I don't get it sometimes what the referees are thinking.
But what's lost in all of this was Alex Smith. He played a heck of a game.
Yeah, again.
Alex Smith, well, he showed what a good quarterback he could be. And for all the talk in Washington with Kyle Allen will probably be back next year. He's injured out the year. Dwayne Haskins probably won't be a Redskin next year unless Daniel Snyder makes it clear he doesn't want him traded. Then Dwayne Haskins is going to be riding the bench for the Washington football team. But going forward, Alex Smith, next year or two, it's fine running the team at quarterback. I mean, they're not really losing a beat with him.
Oh, I definitely agree with that, Jack. I mean, listen, that's a heck of a story. Alex Smith has always been a very good quarterback, not just good, very good. He's taken teams to playoffs. They say he's more of a check down quarterback. I think that's what they asked him to do, and he did it very well. And as I saw him play against the Giants, he was carving them up. He threw a few interceptions, but he was really throwing a good deep ball. In the most competitive division in football, Jack, the NFC West. Well, the Cards beat the Bills on that last-second Hail Mary. The Rams, as our guest Anthony Servino predicted, and you predicted in the beginning of the year, took care of the Seahawks. All are at 6-3 right now. The beat-up 49ers are at 4-6. We discussed the Cards win. Listen, I mean, you got to like what the Rams are doing there, Jack. I mean, they got a good defense. Their running game is kicked in. And Seattle, depending just on Russell Wilson, just isn't working right now, Jack.
Russell Wilson, shockingly, has been unraveling. I know his protection has been so-so, but he's really unraveled these last 3 weeks. A lot of bad decisions that is very uncharacteristic for Russell Wilson. I mean, 3 weeks ago, he was a front runner for the MVP.
Yeah.
He's fallen off the radar, as far as that goes. whether they can get it together or not, Thursday night, Arizona's playing them 6-3, both on top of the division. Remains to be seen. But the Seattle defense, the thing about it, the team is, hit hard times, and their defense hasn't been that bad. You would think it would be an issue with the defense, now with Russell Wilson and the offense, but they're coming upon a hard time. You mentioned the Rams. Monday night's game is really intriguing. The Rams at Tampa Bay. And what no one talks about, a small little storyline. I know it was a couple of years ago, but the Rams went against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, their defense, and they did a heck of a good job. New England won the game, but they basically kept Brady in check for the most part. And the Rams have a good number of the same players, and it's an intriguing game. The Rams at 6-3, the Bucs at 7-3, and the last time the Bucs played on prime time a couple of weeks ago against New Orleans, it was a disaster, an absolute disaster. And the Buccaneers are resilient. They play a bad game, but they always bounce back with a good game. But they're coming off a good game where they put up a lot of points against the Panthers. But it's going to be an interesting game because the Rams have a chance to make a serious statement as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And, it's a Monday night. I can't wait for that game.
Listen, you predicted the Rams in the beginning of the year to maybe go to the Super Bowl, I think was your pick.
The Chiefs over the Rams.
Yeah, and I
picked the Los Angeles Dodgers over the Tampa Bay Rays.
All right, yes, you did, Jack.
But I don't think I joke again, but I have a text message I sent to my son-in-law saying as such. I could show it to you another time, Mac.
See, you're better, Jack, at predicting the future than the trivia questions as we're starting to find right now. So I think we're going to change you to maybe, instead of saying the sports historian, maybe we'll call you the sports fortune teller.
I never gave myself that name. Some of the questions, come on.
Jack, I love you, man. I really do. I really do. So, Jack, we're going to
be humiliating me here.
I'm not trying to, Jack. That was, listen, I gave you a multiple guess question, a multiple choice. You had a third of a chance to win this last trivia round. And for some reason, Jack, I don't know what's going on with you right now. I think it's pressure.
I like a talk show host named Art Rust a lot of years ago. Art Rust loved boxing, loved it, but he could never predict a fight correctly. And for whatever reason, Art Rust wasn't liked by a couple of members of the media. So one of them put down, when it comes to predicting fights, he shows his own version of ring rust.
Wow.
That was kind of a funny line, at least. But
yes, it was. But I think I'm gonna change your new intro to.
Well, put me on probation.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Jack. As far as predictors, I don't know if you checked out our Twitter account at MacMan McGrath, but right now in the top 3 predictions for the year, I'm 21-7, Jack.
21-7. That's 75%, Mac.
I know.
I get you into the Hall of Fame. You need to make it in the Hall of Fame. 75%.
I mean,
like the Hall of Fame. I'm predicting.
In the beginning of the year, I went 3-4. I didn't lose for 3 weeks, and now I haven't lost in the last 2 weeks at all. So, if you guys want to get some great picks, if I bet $100 a game, Jack, I'd be up like what? What is that? 21-7. I'd be up 11? No, I'm trying to get my math together. I'd be up $1,000 at least, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, whenever I'm in Vegas, I can't resist but to put a bet on the NFL games.
Right.
I just can't resist. One of the years I got very annoyed. New England is playing the Jets. When the Jets have Mark Sanchez, I knew New England was going to win the game. But out of loyalty to the Jets, I put my money on the Jets at the window. And of course, New England beat them easy.
You can't bet. You can't bet with your heart, Jack. You never. In fact, if I bet with money, I stay away from my team I root for. If I'm just picking with no money involved, I'll take them when I think it's a good bet. But yeah, I've been pretty lucky. So, folks, we're gonna cut out for about 3 minutes. We'll be right back on the other side of the commercials. Stick with us. We got This Day in Sports History events. We might do that. This ain't gonna happen. And if I got time, because tomorrow's show, Jack, is gonna be very busy, we might even do a little coach's desk. We'll see how much time we have left near the end of the show. So we'll be out of here first and come back in about 3 minutes, guys, and we'll be right back here on the Mac and Jack Sports Show.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying I'm asking to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on every Wednesday through Sunday from 8 to 10 a.m. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack. And, Jack, we're going to do one of my favorites here. We do have time, so I do want to get into Ain't Gonna Happen. Tomorrow, as I said, I'll announce at the end of the show, we're going to have a very busy show. We'll have 3 guests in, and we'll talk about that as we end the show today. So one of my favorite segments I do with you, Jack, is Ain't Gonna Happen, and we'll get that in here today. So let's start with the segment. Kyle Murray gets the MVP this year.
Kyler Murray getting the MVP. Wow. I mean, it's so up for grabs. I mean, and so much is going to unfold over these next 7 weeks. I'm not doubting he's going to play really well, maybe be outstanding to an extent, but I'll say ain't going to happen. because there's so much time to go. And I mean, Aaron Rodgers could get hot again. You know, Russell Wilson will maybe get it together once again. There are too many other guys out there for me to pinpoint one guy and say it's going to happen. So I'll say it ain't going to happen.
Very true, Jack. Very, very well stated. Bears head coach will get fired if the Bears don't make the playoffs, Jack.
Wow. I don't know what the mindset is in Chicago. And he's come under a lot of criticism, but there's a difference between coming under criticism and being in the hot seat. I mean, my guess is ain't going to happen, that they're going to basically reboot their quarterback situation and address certain issues because they have a good defense there. They still have a nucleus. Unless things get ugly over, you know, the rest of the season. If things really get ugly the rest of the season and they snowball downhill, then it's going to happen. But I think the Bears are too good a team not to, you know, maybe win, you know, 3-4 times the rest of the year. But, you know, let's see what happens with Mitch Trubisky, you know, when he comes back and what the quarterback situation is with him and Nick Foles. My guess is ain't going to happen, but it's close to 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, they did have a rift between the GM and the head coach. Of course, the GM did trade up to get Trubisky, and the coach really, from what a lot of people are saying, didn't use Trubisky's, you know, the way he plays, the rolling out, the running. He really tried to use him as a pocket quarterback, as he done with Foles, and it didn't work too well, and Foles got an injured hip pointer. We'll see what happens with that next week. We discussed this earlier.
Mac, owners make the ultimate decision on whether the head coach gets fired. When they don't want to take the blame or get publicly involved, they say it's the GM's decision.
I do agree with that 100%.
And who reality makes the decision.
I do agree with that 100%, Jack. We all discussed this. Cam gets a new contract with the Pats. If they go 7 or 9 or better, I think you said that would probably not happen, Jack. Is that correct?
Ain't going to happen. If they really catch fire, the Pats, they make the playoffs. So they're not going to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're making the playoffs, but let's say they do and they get eliminated in an early round. That's about the best they could hope for. They're not going to give Cam elite quarterback money. There's no way that's happening. If Cam is willing to take a modest contract to stay with New England, it's not primarily about the money, then yeah, it could happen, but I think it ain't going to happen.
Okay. The 49ers will make some moves to draft a quarterback, Jack.
Ain't going to happen. I mean, Mike Shanahan was blunt. Jimmy Garoppolo's his quarterback next year. He said it as clear as could be. Now, I know sometimes a coach could look you in the eye, say one thing, and it could be a complete lie.
Sure.
But Jimmy Garoppolo came close to leading the Niners to a Super Bowl last year. Had the defense held on, Jimmy Garoppolo may have been the Super Bowl MVP. And we wouldn't be talking about him this way, so it ain't going to happen.
Okay. The Steelers finished the season undefeated, Jack.
No, it ain't going to happen. No way. Forget about it. Ain't going to happen. They'll lose in the next couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. They play Jacksonville this week.
They should win.
To win. You can't pick against the Steelers playing Jacksonville. You just can't. But it is a game they could get upset. Okay, Steelers are going to lose more than one game the rest of the way. They'll lose 2-3 times before the season's over.
Okay. The Giants win the NFC East, Jack.
You want to know something? I'm going to say going to happen. Okay. And the reason I say it's going to happen, the Eagles are so dysfunctional. I could see the Giants catching them on the last game of the season. The Giants are playing well under Joe Judge. Who has more upside going forward? Okay?
Yeah.
The key is Sunday's game. If the Eagles win in Cleveland, then I feel it ain't going to happen. They'll have a 2-game lead. They'll hold on one way or the other, the Eagles. But if the Eagles should lose to Cleveland, which I think they will, they'll only have a 1-game lead, and the Giants could make that up. And I'm not sure how the tiebreak is going to work. Then it's going to be within the division record. because the two teams would have split a game apiece. And I think the Giants are the ones with the more upside. The Eagles have a tough schedule ahead of them.
So do the Giants. I mean, they both have a very tough schedule, Jack. I think that's what it's going to come down to. Who beats those other tough teams out of the division, the Giants or the Eagles. The Jets finished this season winless, Jack.
Ain't going to happen. I got to believe they're going to win a game somewhere along the line. Look, it might be against the Chargers this weekend. I think the Chargers, after losing so many heartbreaking wins, after so many heartbreaking losses, I could detect last week against Miami, they kind of gave up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, they kind of gave up a little bit. I don't mean quit per se. I think their resolve to win wasn't as great as before. Okay,
Yeah.
That was my impression. So, the Jets just might pull a surprise this Sunday. I'm not betting they will. Joe Flacco's going to be in instead of Sam Darnold. It's a winnable game for the Jets.
Yeah, I agree that if they're going to win, if they have a shot at winning the game, it's going to be this week, unless it's gone too far downhill, Jack. That's the only thing I can say as far as the
Well,
morale.
let me correct one thing quickly. When I said Joe Flacco's in for Sam Darnold, that's not an upgrade. Obviously, you want to see Sam Darnold in. But the Chargers, I mean, it's a winnable game for the Jets. It really is.
And it's winnable for the Chargers too, Jack. So
Absolutely.
it'll be interesting.
The Chargers lose, and they've hit rock bottom.
Yes. And the last one for you, Jack. Brian Flores gets Coach of the Year.
Going to happen. Brian Flores is a remarkable coach. I mean, the way he's turned that whole program around, he's got the respect of the players. Yeah, I mean, Miami should be an inspiration for all the lower level teams in the NFL. They were so bad the start of last year. They were a disaster. I think they lost the game to New England 59-0. And then in the beginning of the year, and they weren't even competitive their first 3 games or so. That's the worst thing. They were getting blown out. You kind of wondered whether their guys on defense could even tackle people. That's how bad they were.
Yeah.
They traded, and the few good players they had, they seemed to trade away in that deal with Houston. And now the way they rebuilt, and the team is getting better and better and better. You look at upside. They've got upside. They're improving by the week. And if they don't win their division, the AFC East, they should get in as a wild card this year. And they're even going to be better next year. Great job by Brian Flores. Yes, Coach of the Year, going to happen.
Between the Raiders and the Miami Dolphins, those are 2 great stories this year so far. We'll see how the last half of the season goes.
I was thinking of Mac. You mentioned the Raiders. Imagine Antonio Brown had stayed there last year, this year. Do you know the great impact he would have on that Raider team?
Yeah,
it would have been great for the Raiders and great for Antonio Brown.
Definitely. I 100% agree with that. And man, the Raiders had some great receivers in their history too, Jack. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our last segment, and that is birthdays and this day in sports history. We got quite a bit of stuff here, Jack. So we're going to start with the events first. In 1949, the National League batting leader with a .342 average was Jackie Robinson, Jack. And he wins the NL MVP that year. A lot of things happened with that, Jack. It took a certain type of player to come in during that time in history and to play as well as he did under that amount of pressure says a lot about Jackie Robinson. Jack.
Well, what's forgotten about Jackie Robinson? When he came up, obviously we know he had to take a lot of abuse and he had to turn the other cheek. And that was extra hard for someone like Jackie Robinson, who was very combative, okay?
Right.
But he had to do it. Branch Rickey instilled that in him. But when he started showing what a great player he was, like winning that MVP award, so on, finally he was allowed to fight back. And when Jackie Robinson fought back, you didn't want to be at the other end. As hard as you came at him, he would come at you even harder.
So a great player, great job by the Dodgers I mean, the whole all around. That was just a great.
You know,
thing.
let me tell you a story, Mac,
Go ahead.
that kind of bothers me to this day. I like to run. I'd run road races. And this was in 1980 or so. It's in Prospect Park. I just got done running a race, and I knew someone by the name of Marty Adler. He was a Brooklyn Dodger historian who kind of got alumni together. So the race is over. It's another guy, Marty Adler, and Mrs. Jackie Robinson were all hanging out together, just hanging out in Prospect Park. And to show you how self-absorbed and dumb I was, I'm just thinking of my race, what I could have done better. Well, had I started a little slower, had I surged a little more in the middle, I didn't even ask anything about Jackie Robinson. She was right there for me. I got engaged in conversation about Jackie Robinson. No, but stupid me that was 40 years ago, doesn't say a word.
You're competitive, Jack.
How youth sometimes doesn't think.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's in the moment, Jack. You're competitive.
Today, actually.
Yeah. I mean, crazy, right? So Sandy Koufax retires due to the arthritic elbow in 19.
I want to talk about Sandy. Good one, Mac. The other day, Sunday, the NFL game's on. I watched the games basically in its entirety. There's a commercial. And I just scan out of curiosity to see what's on the Major League Baseball Network for new news. They're showing the 7th game of the 1965 World Series. It's the 7th inning with Sandy Koufax on the mound. And I'm watching him gut the game out, a complete game, 3-hitter on 2 days rest. And Sandy in the 9th inning with a 2-0 lead, 1 out, he gives up a single. Normally, he'd never be allowed to last in this day and age. As exhausted as Sandy Koufax is, he rears back for the next 2 batters, and he's throwing harder than he ever was, a couple innings before. And he strikes out both guys. They win the game, and you think of Garrett Cole in that deciding game against Tampa Bay. They took him out in the 6th inning. Had that been, imagine they let Garrett Cole go 9 innings.
Yeah.
Would he have been able to gut it out and been effective through 9 innings and kept Tampa Bay in check? It's doubtful. But Sandy Koufax did it with Minnesota on 2 days rest. Garrett Cole had 3 days rest.
Well,
Garrett Cole is great.
We'll never know, Jack, because they didn't allow him to do it, and you know how I feel about stuff like that taken out.
Well, you're the man who agreed with Kevin Cash over taking out Blake Snell. You love those early hooks, man.
Oh my God! I if I was owner, I'd fire him, Jack. In 1970, I would. He could go
deservedly so.
He could go be manager of the year somewhere else, Jack. After that bonehead move in 1970, Joe Frazier, with a heavyweight title fighting for the heavyweight title, knocks out Bob Foster in 2 rounds, Jack, the great Smoking Joe Frazier.
Well, that was a defense of the heavyweight title. That was November 18th, 1970 in Detroit. Okay.
Right.
Earlier that year, February 16th, 1970 at Madison Square Garden, Frazier met Jimmy Ellis to unify the title. Now, some people are saying Muhammad Ali was the real champ. But Ali had announced his retirement and said he was going to give his belt to the winner. Now, Ali wasn't allowed to fight unjustly because of his thing with not going into the service and so on, which is a story unto itself.
Sure.
But after unifying the title, his first defense was against Bob Foster, and we knew a Muhammad Ali fight was near. Foster was a great light heavyweight champion, but he had no chin. He couldn't fight heavyweights. Every time he tried to fight a heavyweight of note, he'd get knocked out.
Yeah. And in 1970, the great Johnny Bench wins the NL MVP. Jack, is there a better catcher in history than Johnny Bench?
I don't know. I remember the year 1970 was a breakthrough year for the Reds. They lost to the Baltimore Orioles in 5 games in the World Series. The Orioles won 3 pennants in a row. They lost to the Miracle Mets in 69, beat the Reds in 70. And then the Orioles lost to the Pirates and Roberto Clemente in 7 games in 1971. Was there better catch? Bill James, who does all the stats stuff, claimed Yogi Berra was the greatest catcher in Major League history. Was Bench better than Berra? Let me put it this way. There's no one I would rather have behind the plate than Johnny Bench. I mean, what an arm he had. I remember the 76 World Series. Mickey Rivers gets on first base for the Yankees and Bench is there. You better get a perfect lead on the pitcher.
Sure.
Because Bench is going to throw the ball right on the money. Base runners never stole on Johnny Bench. They couldn't. He had a rifle arm was too good. They'd always steal on the pitcher. You know who the biggest Johnny Bench fan is? I'm going to give you a little trivia question, Mac.
Okay.
Of all a legendary coach is the biggest Johnny Bench fan. I'll give you the sport. In the sport of basketball, there's a coach who loves Johnny Bench. He's the biggest fan of Johnny Bench.
Is it professional or college, Jack?
I'll make it easy because it's a vague question. College.
A college coach?
Legendary college coach.
Would that be the head coach of Indiana, former head coach of Indiana,
You
Jack?
got it, Bobby Knight. You got it, man. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I give you the building blocks. I lead you and I help you along. You know.
Right. I just need a
courtesy, but that's what. Love Johnny Bench.
I gave you a 33% chance of getting the last trivia question right, Jack. Yeah. I mean, you gave me 50-50, so there you go. Anyway, in 1981, the great Mike Schmidt wins the second consecutive MVP. We debated who the greatest third baseman was in the history of baseball. I took Mike Schmidt, and I still think I'm right. Incredible third baseman, incredible power. If I had to start a team at third base, the guy I would pick, Jack, would be Mike Schmidt.
Well, you can't argue. I mean, they're number great third baseman.
Yes.
Mike Schmidt was outstanding. I mean, he wasn't a great defensive third baseman. He was a good one, not a great one. He didn't wow you with his defense. He wowed you with his bat.
Right.
But he was defensively, he was very good. There's a difference between being Greg Nettles, great, Brooks Robinson, great, Clete Boyer, great, even Gio Urshela, great, and being very good. Listen, one of the all-time greats, Mike Schmidt. You can't argue about that.
In 1985, Dwight Gooden wins the MVP, Jack. Incredible potential this man had. I mean, he did have a decent career with the Mets. Of course, went to the World Series, Rookie of the Year. He also ended up on the Yankees and had his, and it was very successful with them. But there was so much more this young man could have done, I think, if it wasn't for some of the off-field problems and other things that went along with him. I think he could have been maybe a Hall of Famer, Jack. I think he was.
Dwight Gooden was just put on probation.
Yeah.
For whatever. I don't want to get into the whole thing. You hope he has it all together because he's had a troubled personal life for whatever reasons behind the scenes, and everyone's rooting for him to have it together and so on. Rarely has a pitcher entered the major leagues with the buzz that Gooden did. Yeah. I mean, every time he'd have a strikeout, the fans would be holding the K's up and all, and he made going to a ball game a lot of fun.
Right.
And he was dominant. He was great when he first came up. And he's always linked to Darryl Strawberry. And you always get the feeling they could have done more. Maybe not, but you got the feeling if they were completely devoted to their craft, they could have been potential Hall of Famers. But, they had successful careers if you look at it. World Series with both the Mets and the Yankees. So.
Right. It's a lot of times, these baseball players, football, just sports players that become professional. It's hard for them to leave, their neighborhoods and people behind. And I think a lot of it has to do with who you surround yourself with when you make that big step and, and somebody there to help you along. You have a lot of players that reach out to the veterans and other past players to ask their advice and maybe mentor them a little bit. But it's really hard, Jack, when you're that young and you're used to doing something a certain way, and then you get to the big time and, for some reason it's harder for some people to change and to move
Yeah.
on the page, In 1987, Andre Dawson is the first player from a losing team to win an MVP, Jack.
The Hawk was a great player. He was talking actually of boycotting the Hall of Fame this year. Coming back as an alumni, they invite the alumni back because he was with the Miami Marlins. And he felt he was let go by Derek Jeter. So he was thinking of boycotting it with Derek Jeter getting in there. That was something that was handled poorly by the Marlins when Derek Jeter first went there. Kudos to Derek Jeter for turning the Marlin, program around with the young players, so on. They headed in the right direction. But when they first got there, there were like veterans like Tony Perez and Andre Dawson. And at first they were let go. Then they were offered like substantial cuts in pay as coaches. I mean,
Yeah.
like they were making some. I think they worked in community relations. I shouldn't say coaches and spring training instructors. They're making something like $85,000 a year, and after they got let go, they were offered to come back for $25,000 a year, and they were like insulted, even though it would have been token stuff, part-time work. But with that said, it's understandable. Derek Jeter wanted his own people in there.
Sure.
You start a new job. Sometimes you just want your own people. Nothing against the past ones. You're starting completely new.
Definitely.
You can't be knocked for doing that either.
Definitely. It's very hard in any business if you're starting another business or taking it over and not bringing people that you know and that you trust and over people you don't know. So I definitely understand that. So in their birthdays, Jack, here's a big one. Defensive back Jack Tatum for the Raiders, some call the Enforcer, was born in
I call him
1940.
a cheap shot artist. He was a cheap shot artist.
Stop.
I mean, no way of getting around it. Look, after we had the tragedy with Darryl Stingley getting paralyzed on a hit by Jack Tatum, he writes a book years later. They call me an assassin.
Right.
I mean, that should tell you. I mean, come on. I mean, he was known as a dirty player during his day. He may have been a nice guy outside, the football field. I don't know. Okay. When I say a cheap shot artist, in fairness to him also, a lot of guys were taking cheap shots those days because the rules weren't really enforced.
Well, Jack,
should have been.
do you remember do you remember the play when Tatum hit, Stingley? Do you remember that? Did you see the hit?
I did.
Was there anything cheap that he did on purpose to paralyze the man?
I can't say he did.
Right.
I can't say he necessarily did. I'd have to review it again. But
Yes.
in those days, our mindset was different than it is today.
Definitely.
Today, the perception may have been that it was a cheap shot. Okay,
Well-
but I'm not saying my opinion of Tatum. Okay,
Right.
Not saying my opinion of Tatum. I'm saying that's what he was thought of. He was thought of as a cheap shot artist, and that was the word going around the league. Now, maybe that was unfair.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just a hard-nosed player who played extra hard, so on. It was weird, but that immaculate reception play, no one talks about Tatum's
Good call.
responsibility on that,
Good call.
okay?
Good call.
The
Yeah.
hit he did on the receiver jarred the ball loose,
Right.
and it came to Franco Harris, who practically picked it up off the ground and then ran in for a touchdown. So Tatum's
Just-
aggressive play then backfired.
Well, that
But
was
I'm just saying, it's not my opinion. I'm just talking about his reputation.
Yeah, I mean,
around the league.
and what a hit that was. I mean, that was the end of the game, Jack. I mean, that hit should have finished the game. Franco Harris was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever watched the story that Franco Harris told how he got in that position. He wasn't even supposed to be there. So I mean, it's really, if you get a shot, go watch the Immaculate Reception. Listen to what Franco Harris, how he described it, because it was very interesting. I think Tatum was just a hard-nosed guy. I think, and Ronnie Lott was a hard-nosed guy. And the Patriots also had a couple hard-nosed safeties that when you went over the middle, Jack, it was, you got to get it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way it was. And that's the way football was played today. You can't breathe on him without getting a penalty.
Listen, you
Tony
talk about
Franklin.
certain players like Bill Romanowski. If I'm going to hear his
Okay.
name,
Okay.
what I'm going to think about immediately, cheap shots, dirty players. But that's how the game was played. I mean,
Yes.
he just maybe did it better than someone else.
Oh, Jack,
Same
I mean,
thing with-
listen.
same thing with Jack Tatum. It comes to
Yes.
people's minds. Well, they'll take cheap shots. But
Yes.
I don't know whether he
I know
really
there,
took cheap
there are
shots
people,
or he just did what the law allowed.
right. There are
Ray Forsey at the
There are
plate.
stories, Jack, about people biting people and stuff, as Conrad Dobler was known for as a guard, and Dick Butkus did a few things that very questionable play. So Tony Franklin, the kicker for the Eagles and the Patriots, double dipper, born in 1956, very good kicker, Jack.
Yeah.
Also in 1956, quarterback Warren Moon was born. Now, there's a quarterback, Jack, that really doesn't get enough credit. He played, in a different league before he got there. Very good quarterback, very accurate, threw a great ball. Of course, I think he is in the Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken.
He is
I'm
in the
not.
Hall of Fame. He gets credit. Mac, he wasn't an elite quarterback. He was on the
Pretty
on the
close.
par with a John Elway. He was more on the level of a Phil Simms, a
Right.
very good quarterback. Very good.
Right.
Listen, Warren Moon was the quarterback for the Houston Oilers when they were
Right.
beating the Buffalo Bills 35-3, and the Bills stormed back.
True.
Moon had a chance to gather his Oiler team and lead them to victory, not allow that comeback to be mounted. But, he was a very, very good quarterback, had a very, very good career. He's a borderline Hall of Fame and got in the Hall of Fame.
Right. That's why I
wouldn't
wasn't
call
sure.
him he's certainly it doesn't rate as an all-time great quarterback.
In yardage, he's way up there, Jack, and he was with the Vikings. I mean, he played on some good teams. I remember the Houston run and shoot offense. That was nonsense anyway. In 1962, Jamie Moyer, Red Sox pitcher, was born, Jack.
Yeah, Jamie Moyer didn't have much heat on his fastball, but he was effective. Lou Piniella loved him a lot with Seattle.
Definitely. He was a successful pitcher. Maybe not great, but very successful. Seth Jr., linebacker for Arizona and Green Bay, was born in 1964. I remember Seth playing on the Super Bowl team with Green Bay, Jack. Good linebacker, very good linebacker. And in 1968, Gary Sheffield was born, Jack. And I saw him play live. He had a swing that was off the hook. I don't know if you remember him swinging the bat, but it looked like he was trying to kill the ball every time.
It's not that old for you to say you saw him play live. I mean, the man it's played within the last 20 years. You're not like you're 22.
Yes.
I saw him play live. I mean,
Yes.
come on.
I mean, it was just awesome to watch.
Well, listen, Sheffield is on the ballot for the Hall of Fame, but he hasn't gotten a lot of support.
Yeah.
509 career home runs, a lot of he was an RBI machine.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a heck of a hitter, and he should be getting a little more love getting into the Hall of Fame. But I think his personality turned people the wrong way. Plus, there were a few rumors, going around about him otherwise.
I remember those. I remember those, Jack. And I still think I don't care about rumors as long as you're playing decent ball. You should be able to get respect for playing the game of ball, unless you're cheating. And so I never heard no rumors about that, Jack. So tomorrow, Jack, great show coming up. If you love boxing, if you love the one-on-one hand combat, we got Iceman John Scullion. We got on Joe DeGuardio. Is that correct, Jack? Did I say it right?
Yeah, boxing promoter Joe DeGuardia.
And we also got a gym owner coming on. Let me get the name of it. I know Sean. Go ahead, Jack.
Sean Cerrone, who owns
Yes, Sean Cerrone. I was tempted to say Rick Cerrone, Jack. I don't know why I was tempted to say that.
They're related. I mean, but but we're going to find out all the hardships a gym owner has had to go through with this pandemic, him having to close his business to reopen it. And athletes will work out in this gym, not name athletes, but people who might play for school teams runners, this and that. How
Definitely,
hard it
definitely.
is to keep the gym open during this time.
So, guys, come in and tune in tomorrow. The Jack and Mac show on Thursday, 8 to 10 a.m. live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And we'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a great day.